welcome to let me interject, but I'm Michael Wilpon. So Caitlin Clark is basically the Mike Trout of women's college basketball, right?
I'm Terry Kornhauser, and absolutely hottest ticket in the state of Iowa. I mean, record breaking, beating Pistol Pete. I mean, it's some amazing stuff.
So the Texas Rangers are preparing to defend their title here in 2023. They're largely bringing back the same roster. I think they have a fairly good chance in this division with basically the Astros seemingly taking not really a step back, but not being that same powerhouse that they've been in the past. Rocking Altuve and Alvarez and Kyle Tucker, but Alex Bregman being in the final year of his contract, having guys like Jake Myers, Chas McCormick, and Jose Abreu kind of down on the bottom end of the rotation, I think it's really setting up Texas to actually take over and defend their title, not just in the majors, but in actually take over and win the division for the first or for 2023 as well. Behind Corey Seager, Marcus Semien, Adolis Garcia, a young stud in Evan Carter, and bringing up Wyatt Langford to the roster this year after he nearly made the World Series roster in 2023.
Yeah, this team was like incredible on offense last year. I think that's just going to carry over because they have those guys returning. I like their lineup because they have a diversity of different types of bats. So they have like your Simeon, who's like a big pull power guy, Seager, who's just an all world hitter. Then you got big power in Garcia and Josh Young, and then incredible plate approach from guys like Evan Carter. Um, Jonah Heim's one of the best hitting catchers in the league. We kind of forget about him in this stacked lineup. They're going to score tons of runs, even if their pitching maybe doesn't stack up with the Astros. The bullpen's a little bit of a concern, but I think they're going to be right there in the thick of things with um, both Seattle and the Astros for this division. Um,
Yeah, the one guy that I always forget about is in Texas, especially now, is Leody Taveras. The dude was a fairly decent prospect. I don't think he was a top prospect by any means, but he was a good young player, and he's been a good young player here, especially the last year for Texas, but just hasn't been able to shine, I guess, as big as some of these other names. It's probably going to stay that way, but if Leody Taveras can have a pretty good season, I think that's going to basically turn this Rangers team into an offensive juggernaut. I mean, it already is, but it's going to help
did you
amplify
see that
that
catch
even
that he
more.
made in the World Series? It was unbelievable. So he's the guy that's just kind of under the radar, batting at the bottom of the lineup, but he plays phenomenal defense. And I really think that he's primed for like a big step up to become a guy that's hitting more in the middle of the order. It's going to be hard to do that in this lineup, but I think he has the talent to be able to do it. And with defense and base running, he's going to be a key part of this team and their title defense.
All right. So with that being said, is Houston still the top dog in the division, or has Texas actually taken over?
Yeah, after I gave all that praise to Texas, I still think that Houston is the top dog in this division. And that's just because they're driven by incredible star power. Kyle Tucker, Jordan Alvarez, Altuve still incredible. Um,
Chas McCormick
Texas,
is just an absolute legend.
I mean, Chas McCormick's pretty good, and he's going to get full-time playing time this year. Yainer Diaz moving into a full-time role.
I mean,
Like,
McCormick had a 20 homer season last year, didn't he?
he did, yeah. But yeah, I just think that we forget about guys like Alex Bregman, who just year in year out puts up amazing numbers, and that's the reason why I think Houston's not only top dog, they're a true World Series contender, and their roster is built for a deep playoff run once again. Like, I don't think they have anything to worry about. They're just gonna once again coast through the season and be right there in the playoffs.
I think the biggest thing for Houston, at least in most people's eyes, and why they seem to mentally value them the way that they do, is there's like behind the top three guys, there's not a lot of household names. Like Altuve, Alvarez, and Kyle Tucker, Absolutely. Household names, makes a ton of sense. Alex Bregman as well, a little bit less so, and he's in the final year of his contract there. But like Jose Abreu is definitely not the same guy that he used to be. Yainer Diaz, who the heck is he?
He's amazing.
Well, I know.
Yeah, give some respect to Yainer, man.
No, I'm just saying that's what most people are thinking. And then Chas McCormick, Jake Myers, Mauricio Dubon, Greg Kessinger. These are just not names that a lot of people know. And so they undervalue them as players, even though Mauricio Dubon had essentially a breakout year last year, and showed finally what he was, what they thought he could do when he was out in San Francisco. So I think that gives this team a lot more depth. Now they have Victor Caratini is their backup catcher, and he is clearly a better hitter than Martin Maldonado, to come in and back Yainer Diaz, who's way, way, way better of a hitter than Martin Maldonado. So I think this is a pretty deep lineup, and they still do have one of the deepest rotations in the division.
They do, and I'll just jump in quickly with the bullpen, which is now built specifically for October with their three-headed monster of Josh Hader, Ryan Presley, Brian Abreu. That's got to be the best three relievers in like any one single bullpen. So they're set up.
Yeah. So this is potentially the last season for the A's in Oakland. We don't know where they're going to play next year through 2028, seemingly. But how is this team going to go out in Oakland? I don't have a whole lot of hopes. They lost 112 games last year. And it was just abysmal. One of the worst teams in Major League history by record, and I think probably the worst team in Major League history by performance. So they did make a couple moves this offseason that kind of improved the team. Abraham Toro brought in a trade from Milwaukee, bringing in veteran starters Alex Wood and Ross Stripling. A little bit on the older side, but they are solid pitchers. So
yeah, those guys they definitely raised their floor by adding real starting pitchers. They don't have random guys that no one's ever heard of making starts for them all season. Like, I think Paul Blackburn will bounce back. Alex Wood and Ross Stripling, you can trust them to be what they are, which is basically back end starters. But I mean, can we really say that they improved? Like, this team is not good.
No, you can't say that they improved. I mean, Mitch Spence comes in through a Rule 5 pick, and he's probably one of their top relievers, and I don't even know who he is. But he was a guy that was at least kind of talked about going into the Rule 5 draft of being a solid pickup that someone could take from the Yankees. The A's got him. And I mean, their bullpen now that Trevor May retired after the end of the season is what? Scott Alexander, Trevor Gott, and Mason Miller, I guess, would be maybe the top three.
Yeah.
So assuming that you get to the late innings with a win or with a lead, like, you're still not confident in it based on those three. Mason Miller did have a really solid first couple games in the majors last year. I think he took a no-hitter into like the 7th inning in his debut or something like that. He's
an electric pitcher. Like,
yeah,
he can be one of the top relievers probably in the league, but one reliever on this team doesn't really move the needle at all.
Yeah, so like, there's definitely some bright spots in the roster for the A's, but nothing that's bright in the right spot.
Yeah.
Like, if you're a team this bad, you need a power hitter or you need a dominant starting pitcher. You don't need a really good reliever.
I just hope the A's fans go out in droves and, enjoy their last season of their team. Like, go have fun, I guess.
Yeah. So the Angels brought in a new manager under Ron Washington and an entire new coaching staff. This is going to be a completely different clubhouse culture than it was underneath Even going all the way back to Mike Sosha, like, and shoot,
Joe
the
Madden,
Joe, yeah, Joe Madden, and then the guy
Phil
that
Nevin,
was there last year,
Phil Nevin.
Phil Nevin. There we go. See, I've already forgotten his name because I didn't like him. But can Wash take this club behind a really solid young lineup, which is kind of weird to say for the Angels, I think, of Mickey Moniak, Nolan Shanwell, Luis Rengifo. He's not really as young as I thought, but Ohapi, Neto, with superstar Mike Trout, who is still only 32, mind you, and turn this into a really good ball club. Is it possible?
It's possible. I guess I want to back up to Wash and Wash's shtick in general. He's a guy that supposedly does really well with teaching young players, specifically base running and defense. There's so many players that have said, Wash taught me how to be the elite defender that I am now. And the Angels clearly need that with their new players. They also need someone to motivate, right? Think about a guy like Anthony Rendon. He wasn't motivated when he played with Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout. I don't know what can motivate that man. I don't think Wash is up to the job, but let's hope that Wash can rub off on most of the players in this clubhouse and like have them buy in on the new version of the Angels. Like every time there's a new manager, you got to be somewhat optimistic that they can bring some positive change to the team.
So I think the one player who might benefit from Wash the most that is already on this club is Joe Adell. Dude has a really, really, really good bat, and he has been awful on defense, and it has been the reason that he has been going back and forth between AAA and the majors and not really being able to find a spot. I think if Wash could teach him how to actually field, Joe Adell could actually finally become the regular major leaguer that we all expected.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, the problem with Adele otherwise is that he's got very, very bad strikeout rates and a serious contact issue. But yeah, I think they have the opportunity to give these guys some run and find out is like a Joe Adele or a Mickey Moniak, are they everyday players despite their very obvious flaws?
Yeah. We're about to run out of time there, so I'll just go ahead and move us on. Is the Cy Young of the American League on the Seattle Mariners staff this year?
I'm going to go ahead and say yes because they have so many cracks at it. They have Luis Castillo, who is way up there in the Cy Young voting a year ago,
And pretty
and
much
then
every year before that.
pretty much every year, like he's a clear ace in this league. Um, and then you've got the younger guys that are looking like they are going to be joining those ace ranks as well. And George Kirby, and maybe to a lesser extent Logan Gilbert. He's a very very good pitcher. I wouldn't pick him of the three to win the Cy Young, but that's not really saying a lot because he's very, very good on his own. I just think that Kirby has such an amazing skill set of not walking anybody. His walk rate was like under the 4% last year, and gets a lot of weak contact and throws a lot of different types of pitches. Seems like he's working on a splitter to up that strikeout rate. I think he's ready to take off and
Two and a
be one of
half
the top 10
percent walk
pitchers.
rate last year.
2.5, yeah. So he just lapped the field. Nobody has better control than this guy.
Yeah, I
And
think
that's
he's the only guy in the majors that has a difference between his strikeout and walk rate over 20%. Probably not.
that's
But
not that's not
I
true.
was going to
But
say probably not, but it seems ridiculous because I mean his K rate's pretty low at
that
22%.
that's kind of the only knock on Kirby is that he's in the zone so much that makes him almost hittable. So you almost wonder, you know, does he throw a little bit more out of the zone, risk a couple more walks, and maybe get some more swings and misses and weak contact off the end of bats and stuff. So yeah,
I mean, at the same time, like I personally like George Kirby the most for maybe winning Cy Young out of this group as well. I love Logan Gilbert. I wanted Logan Gilbert to get traded to the Cardinals this offseason before the Cardinals went out and signed Sonny Gray. Like the dude is solid. But just something about watching George Kirby. George Kirby just looks like that elite pitcher that everybody wants. Like just watching him, you think, oh my God, this is one of the best pitchers I've seen ever. And the numbers back it up to a point. I mean, last year, 26-year-old, well, I guess he was 25 at the time, 25-year-old kid pitched 190 innings. That's not common anymore. With a walk rate under 3%, with an ERA below 350, and he just absolutely dominated. So
yeah, and that's what Seattle's built on their pitching. It's going to carry them this year.
All right, so staying on Seattle, Jerry Dipoto made a lot of moves this offseason. So go ahead and give him a report card.
Yeah, so Jerry Dipoto did a ton of stuff. He was probably the most active GM/president of this offseason, other than maybe Andrew Friedman. But he brings in Jorge Polanco, Luke Raley, Mitch Garver. I think I'm missing a guy.
Brings back Mitch Haniger.
Yeah, brings back Mitch Haniger in a trade.
Brings in Sebi Savala and Luis Arias on trades. In the bullpen, gets Gregory Santos from the White Sox, Jackson Kowar from Atlanta, Carlos Vargas and from Arizona, and signs Austin Voth to the bullpen as well. So half the bullpen is brand new, half the bench is brand new, and half the lineup is brand new.
And they basically sent out Teoscar Hernandez, who did not re-sign, Tom Murphy was a free agent, Mike Ford. So a lot of mixing and matching, a lot of moving parts here. Overall, though, it doesn't feel like I wouldn't say that they got worse, but I wouldn't say that they made like major gains. I like the Polanco signing. I think that made things make a little bit more sense. But prior to that, it was like, is Luke Raley really better than Teoscar? Is Mitch Haniger the same guy that he was when he hit 39 homers for the Mariners a few years ago? Maybe not.
I would say probably not there, but
probably not. Yeah, but like now, the more I think about it, the more I'm kind of on board with it, because basically what they've done is they've added a little bit more power in guys like Haniger and Garver, but they've also helped cut down their strikeout rate by bringing in guys like Polanco and I guess Josh Rojas is going to play a little more this year, maybe as the main third baseman. So overall, I think I'm going to give the Mariners and Jerry Dipoto a C for their offseason.
I really like the moves that they made in their bullpen. Their bullpen has kind of been a strength for the last couple years. But I think bringing in Gregory Santos, bringing in some other or another young guy, and a young guy, and Carlos Vargas. Wait, Gregory Santos is only 24? Why did I think he was older than that?
He was a rookie last year.
What am I thinking? Okay, but bringing in two really young guys who have some pretty good value there, especially in Santos, who was really, really good last year. Bring in kind of a reliable veteran in both. Jackson Kowar, probably not great, but he could turn into something. Like
he's a former top prospect.
He's a former top prospect that never really got there because he was in that first round of like 5 first-round picks for the Royals. But so I'd probably give him a B. I'm a little bit nicer than you are. So
I was going to give him a B minus, but I'll give him a C plus.
Okay, C plus. All right, I'll give him a B minus. You give him a C plus. All right, so Mike Trout hasn't been really on the field all that much in the last couple years. I think 120 games is maybe the most he's played. What are the chances that he plays over 139 and a half games this year?
Yeah, so Mike Trout hasn't played 140 since 2018, I believe. It's been a while. Like the guy is constantly getting hurt, and some of it's out of his control. Some of it's freak stuff like a hamate bone. Um, but generally, when Mike Trout's on the field, he's the best player in the league. That's how it's been for the vast majority of his career. Last year was a little bit of an exception because before he got hurt, he wasn't quite at the same level. So I'm wondering if we're kind of starting to see the performance decline of Mike Trout, and maybe that's just a buildup of injuries. Maybe he comes in this spring fully healthy and fully motivated, which I know that he is for sure. Uh, he also knows all the talk about him not staying on the field. Like he's very aware of that, and I assume that staying on the field is like a major, major priority for Mike Trout. He's going to be out there every possible game that he can be. So I don't think it's a high chance, but I'm going to give him 45% chance of staying on the field for 140 this year.
I'm actually only going to give him about a 5% chance of making it to 140. If this number were 120, I think it would be a lot higher. But I mean, there's going to be some injuries come up. His back has been like a constant like issue, just with some back tightness, and I think I can't remember what it was.
He has a chronic back issue.
Yeah, and so I think it's going to keep him off the field more than 20 games, but I don't know that it'll necessarily be as bad as it's been last year. But when he was on the field in 2022, 120 games, he put up 40 bombs and 80 RBIs. So like he could do that again. All right. Last year the A's lost 112. What are the odds that they lose 100 games this year?
They're pretty good. I mean, like we were talking about a little bit earlier on, this team has not really improved. But I do want to highlight like some of the bright spots. We need to talk about Zach Geloff, who I think is their best offensive player. He had a really nice rookie season. Um, he's got a nice combination of being able to get the most of his fly balls and steal some bases, play good second base. He's only 24 years old. Um, he would be part of the reason why they would not lose 112 games this year. There's other legitimate major league caliber players in their lineup too, like Brent Rooker. He's a premier power source type player. Seth Brown's a solid outfielder. I mean, they've got guys that are not just minor league scrub types, and that's like the way that they would get out of the hundred loss club. But
Well, and I'm still a Jordan Diaz believer myself. Like he
okay,
showed some promise last year. He plays all of the all of the infield positions except for short. Um, so chances are he will get some decent playing time this year. Geloff is pretty much a lock in at second. Noda, if he's healthy, is a lock at first. But Abraham Toro, I'm not sold that he's going to be a 160 game third baseman, even for the
no way.
A's. But so I do think that they have some bright spots here in their lineup. I don't think that they have enough quality major leaguers to be over 100 or under 100 losses. So I'm going to give them about 112% to match the
Oh man,
112 losses from last year.
it's really hard to lose that many games, but this team can do it. I'm going to say 70%.
70%? All right. All right. So speaking of odds, Jacob deGrom, Max Scherzer, Nate Eovaldi, Tyler Mahle, John Gray. They have never pitched in the same rotation at the same time. Is that correct?
That's correct.
What are the odds that they are pitching in the same rotation for Texas in September?
Very, very low. But this is the dream for Texas. They are sort of hanging on with some of these fringe guys like Dane Dunning, Cody Bradford at the back end of the rotation to start the year. And obviously, they need to keep pace with Seattle, keep pace with the Astros, and they need to get their stud pitchers healthy by mid year or late in the year, so they're ready for the stretch run. I just know about pitcher attrition, and it's a very real thing. And the chances of all 5 of these guys being healthy at the same time is slim to none, in my opinion. I think it's less than 20%. I'll say 18%.
18%. All right. Well, I'm kind of right there with you. I think if they would have kept Cole Reagans instead of trading him to the Rangers for Aroldis Chapman, and then you were to ask me if they were to have like a rotation of just some of these guys, like Nate Eovaldi and John Gray are the two I trust the most to be on the field, and Scherzer as well, but then like DeGrom and Tyler Mahle, just I don't think they're going to be on the field hardly at all.
I don't trust any of those guys. I mean, they're always hurt. All 5 of those guys.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a solid 17% for Nate Eovaldi's jersey number.
Okay.
So, should have changed the clock here. All right. Food chain time. Oh, not 40 minutes. Food chain time. How do you rank the American League West clubs?
Okay, so I'm gonna just start with number 5. Get that one out of the way real quick. A's are the 5th place team in this division, no question about it. And I think even the Angels are pretty clearly the 4th, and then there's a pretty sizable gap to go to the top 3, and that's where things get really interesting. I'm still gonna pick the status quo here and go with the Astros. I think they're still the team to beat. They've got the most star power. They've got the best bullpen. They have a very capable and solid starting rotation that could be better than solid if they get bounce backs from guys like Christian Javier. Hunter Brown takes the next step. Then you're talking about an elite rotation if Justin Verlander is regular Justin Verlander. Then the battle for second place is going to be fierce, and both these teams are definitely going to be in the wild card hunt. They're also going to be in the division hunt. I don't think the Astros are miles ahead of either Seattle or Texas. I'm going to go with Seattle this year, making the playoffs. They missed last year. They were so close. I think their pitching has the edge over Texas and probably even the Astros. Their lineup's definitely a step down from Houston, but with some of the additions that they made over the offseason, I think they'll see some improvements. I know Ty France was working on bat speed training. He could have a bounce back.
He went to Driveline.
He went to Driveline. He added 3.5 miles per hour on his bat speed. So that could be the key for this Mariners team to take the next step. We've gone an entire episode about the AL West, and we haven't even said the name Julio Rodriguez one time. They have a true superstar that can match up with anybody else in the league, and that will go a long way in helping the Mariners. And then Texas will finish 3rd, and that's just because of how tough this division is going to be. They've got a great offense. They've got those pitchers coming in the second half, but I think based on what I'm saying about kind of their health history of their starting pitchers, and maybe they don't necessarily take another step forward because they kind of came off a dream season offensively. Maybe they don't really improve a whole lot from where they were a year ago.
So I agree with you with the bottom 2. The A's are clearly the worst team in this division. I actually don't think they're the worst team in the majors anymore. I think the White Sox have kind of surpassed them there. The Angels, I agree. I think the Angels could be a lot better than we think. I mean, even their starting rotation of Reed Detmers, Griffin Canning, Patrick Sandoval, those 3 can be good. Like, if those 3 can pitch well, Tyler Anderson and Chase Silseth kind of just have to exist. This lineup could carry them into a potential 3rd place. I don't think it's going to happen. So I'm still putting them in 4th. Then I actually have the Texas Rangers in 3rd as well. I think they're going to maybe take a half step back offensively. I think their rotation is going to be the death of them this year. It's just a hunch. I don't really have much to back it up other than just saying the names Dane Dunning and Cody Bradford. Now, here's where we differ. I actually think Houston is going to come in second. And the only reason I think that is because I think Seattle is finally going to take a step forward. Julio is going to have an MVP season now that Ohtani is in the National League. He's going to get it done. Logan Gilbert, George Kirby, Luis Castillo are going to be a three-headed monster at the top of this rotation. And this team's really not going to need as much power to score as many runs. It's going to be like when DeGrom was pitching in 2019. When DeGrom was pitching, the Mets could win with 2 runs. That's kind of how I see it happening.
They usually lose, bro. Well, but yeah, no, I think the Mariners have a better offense than those Mets, and yeah, they're not going to be that's not going to be a weak part of their team anymore. I think they're going to be more like an average offense, and that can help them.
Right. So we're kind of at the end of the time stuff. It's big finish time, but I don't know that we have enough big finish time to waste 9 minutes. So I won't turn the timer on at this point. But yeah, so we're kind of worried about the Astros pitching staff. Is that?
Yeah. So yeah, we can dig into that one a little bit more. So with their pitching staff, there's one guy at the top that you can trust, and I think that's Framber. He's proven now for a few years that he's like a very reliable pitcher. He's kind of taken the next step, even becoming more of a strikeout guy. He's an innings hoss. He basically like is near 200 innings for the last couple of years. But then things get a little bit dicey. So Verlander is 41 years old. He's already going to be starting the season on the injured list. Who knows how long a shoulder injury can linger? And you know, he's not the same guy that he was even a couple of years ago, and that just totally makes sense. Just an age thing. I wouldn't put it past him to get back to being a really good pitcher, but I'm not counting on it at the same time. Christian Javier was rough last year, and I don't know if he's the guy that he showed that he was in 2022. And then it's a lot of like other young or unproven guys that, or just not great options like a Jose Urquidy. He's not a scary guy to have in the middle of your rotation. He's more
well depends on
like
which it depends on
who's scary for the Astros.
Yeah.
So
but
I guess
Hunter
like
Brown
overall,
and JP France do have they have shown some really, really good skills on the mound. And so there is a potential that one or potentially both of those guys put together a breakout season this year. JP France is a little bit on the older side for a guy who just finished his rookie season, being turning 29 here, basically before opening day or right after opening day. But Hunter Brown, we talked about a lot about him last year and about his upside, kind of looking like basically a young Verlander. Is what we were saying. His delivery is this similar. His pitch mix is similar. Like just everything about him just reminded us of young Verlander. Well, that's high praise, and it doesn't just go away necessarily. Like I think it's just he hasn't put it together. So you could see Hunter Brown take off. I think it's just not a sure thing. Christian Javier, I don't know. I'm with you on Framber.
Yeah.
Framber is
Javier's like the big wild card here. He's the one that could make this from a kind of sketchy rotation to like a really good one if he gets back to form.
So who are the biggest young players to watch in this division then? I would say probably Evan Carter and Wyatt Langford are the easy two to point out, but there's surely some other guys here in this division as well, right?
Yeah, I was going to target Langford, so I'll go talk about him real quick first. He was a guy that was rumored to be considered for the World Series roster last year. He shot through 4 levels of the minor leagues. And he just seems like one of those guys that's going to immediately start hitting from day one in the major leagues. And they can't really hold him down for much longer. he seems so ready. Um, Even if he does not necessarily a great defensive player, like they've got maybe a spot for him as a DH. They can work him into the outfield a little bit. I think this guy is going to make this lineup even better. It's going to be scary. And then Evan Carter, who showed in the World Series and the playoffs that the moment was not too big for him. He was hitting third in the World Series winning lineup, and he had literally played less than 30 games in his career. So that's just the kind of trust that they had in him organizationally. Amazing plate discipline. Seems like he's got all the athleticism to play the field, run the bases, and I think he's just going to continue to show that he's that guy for a full season.
Yeah, I think that the two other guys that or the two guys in the division that maybe have the biggest um opportunity to maybe shake up the standings from what we expect are on the Angels. And those guys would be Nolan Shanwell and Zach Neto. You could throw Logan O'Hoppe in there too, but I think
O'Hoppe, yeah.
I really like O'Hoppe, but I think O'Hoppe he was already kind of at what we thought he could do as a rookie. Like he played really, really well last year. Neto did as well, and Shanwell, when he came up, played really well. But I think those guys still have a little bit more to show us. Like, I think with Neto getting hurt last year, it was a little bit of a is he I think he would have done better had he not got hurt. That's an obvious statement there. Obvious statement of the day. Check. But Neto, like, he only hit 225, 9 homers. Like, he played really good shortstop defense. But, like, he's one of those guys that if he could take the step forward to become just an average hitter, maybe 12 to 15 home runs over the course of the season. Actually, well, really, by games played, he's looking like about a 15 homer guy. He could get his average up to like 240, 250. I think he could make a significant impact on this lineup. And Nolan Shanwell, he's 22 years old. He was only up on the major league roster for 45 days last year, but he is a stud. Like, he hit in his 29 games, 275 with only 1 homer and 132 plate appearances. But down in Double A, he hit 333. Down in Single A, which he was only there for 2 games, I guess.
My problem with Shanuel is that he is like first base Nick Madrigal. Like, he's got great contact. He doesn't really strike out. And he actually has OBP skills that are very legit, but the guy has absolutely no power. And I don't think he's going to hit more than like 5 home runs max. And that's pretty tough when you're a first baseman.
You don't think he can develop any power? He's only 22. I guarantee he hasn't filled out his frame yet.
It's not looking good for him, to be honest. But I hope I'm wrong.
But if he can hit and get on base the way that he does in front of some of the other guys on this roster, like, yeah, it's a little bit weird for your first baseman to not have power himself. But, I mean, someone's got to be on base to score. So he could make a pretty big impact. And if he starts developing that power and gets to the point where he can hit 10, 15 home runs, seems like a big if, seeing as he only hit 2 all last year across 4 different levels. But the dude also skipped AAA. So there's a lot of stuff we don't know about him because he just kept getting thrust into new situations and didn't have time to actually sit down and adjust. So I think giving him a little bit of time to adjust, he might figure it out, be able to hit for some power while still hitting 275. I think that those two combined could take this Angels team from being really mediocre at best to being potentially vying for second place. So, is Andres Munoz the next elite closer?
I think yes. I think this guy, we've been hearing about him for years since he was like 21 with the Padres. He threw like over 100 back then. He's gone through Tommy John surgery and everything. And last year it seemed like, yeah, he's kind of putting everything together. He's putting together those strikeout rates and really high ground ball rates. And I think he's like this year's um, Yoan Duran. He's like the guy that people don't really know. Like they know he throws really hard, but he's gonna translate it to actually being a lockdown closer. And this bullpen in general is like very, very good. And he's gonna be the guy that leads the group. And I think that's one of the other strengths that the Mariners have is that strong bullpen.
Yeah, especially adding Santos as your 8th inning guy going into him. I like
Brash.
this. And Brash when he comes back from injury. Yeah. So I really, really like Andres Munoz. So, and I mean, the dude has a nasty curveball. Just absolutely filthy. All right, that is all we have for you guys for the American League West Division preview. I hope you enjoyed the let me interject style. We didn't really interject over each other very much. We'll have to work on that for next time. We will see you back here next week. If you enjoy the podcast, please subscribe on your favorite podcasting app or YouTube to make sure you don't miss any future episodes. Join the conversation on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Getaway Day Pod. If you enjoy card collecting, check out our sister YouTube channel at Getaway Day Cards.